Hi, I'm Connie Romans, and this is CareerTech Conversations. And today we're talking to Robby Branscum. Robby is part of a 3-teacher agricultural education program at Stillwater High School. He was recently named the National Carl Perkins Community Service Award winner at the annual CareerTech Conference in Phoenix, which is a pretty big deal. So, Robby, first of all, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And second of all, congratulations, because it is a big deal. We're going to get to the big deal later, but first I need to know your backstory. So you teach 8th and 9th grade ag in Stillwater. Is that correct?
Yes.
And where did you come from prior to Stillwater? I know that you've been here 8 years, but it's not your first teaching job.
Absolutely. So I grew up in eastern Oklahoma in Fort Gibson, came here to Oklahoma State University, and never left the county. I spent my first 3 years teaching at Oilton, a very small Class A school, and then moved to Stillwater and have been here the last 8 years. In total, this is my 11th year of teaching.
And when you were in school, were you actually an FFA member yourself?
Absolutely. So I was an FFA member, was fortunate enough to run for state FFA office and started this organization as a state officer. And so had some incredible experiences, allowed me to go around the state and see many other successful programs, which inspired me for what I do today.
Now, FFA has been around since 1928, I believe.
Yes.
But there may be someone out there who doesn't know what the acronym stands for. So could you fill them in on that?
Yeah, so FFA stands for Future Farmers of America. But in the 1980s, a little history lesson, we shortened the name to the National FFA organization because it's farming, but it's also so much more. And so many of our students do not come from production agricultural backgrounds. Many of them will not be farmers, but there's still so many skills that we can instill in them.
I'm glad you said that, because that was actually a question I was going to ask down the road a little bit. But people like my dad would see a young lady in an FFA jacket and be totally confused. You know, she lives downtown and she's a girl, quite frankly. But it's a new era in FFA, or it has been for a while.
Absolutely. But you know, we've changed and we've embraced change in diversity. I know in our FFA chapter, Stillwater, 8 of our 9 chapter officers are females, and that's the second year in a row. And so we see females step up and lead and quite frankly, take charge. So,
well, it is amazing to watch, and I'll not even try to educate my 91-year-old father, but the new generation gets it. Okay, so you went to Fort Gibson to school. Now it's 2024, and you seem to be really loving what you're doing. Why did you go into teaching in the first place?
I love agriculture education because each day is a different day. I love working with the younger students. So the 8th and 9th graders are the ones who just joined FFA and agriculture education, and they're a blank slate. A lot of them don't come from agricultural backgrounds. They don't know what we have to offer. They don't even know what pathway they're going to follow. And so it's so exciting each day to engage students in hands-on learning and help them find their passion. And, as we're at the mid-year point of the school year, as students look back and think about the passion they found that year, it's really exciting to know that I was a part of that.
Do you ever get 8th and 9th grade students that come in thinking it sounds really cool, and then before the semester's over, they're like, no, this is not where I belong?
Absolutely. But in teaching introductory classes, each unit is something new and unique. And so we always encourage kids, keep an open mind, try something new. You may not be into livestock, but when we start welding, maybe so excited, or you may gravitate toward the leadership side and love public speaking. And so there's so many different areas. And so we encourage those students to press on, give us the whole year, and most of them eventually come around.
In 2024, you took your 8th and 9th grade students to FFA National Convention in Indianapolis, and I've heard nothing but praise about the students, their performance, and you brought back some awards as well.
Absolutely. So we really promote agricultural research, and this aligns with an FFA contest called the Agri-Science Fair. And so these students work individually or in partnerships, and they conduct agricultural research, and they get to report that similar to a science fair. And we were very blessed. We had 4 national champion agri-science projects. We have 15 national finalists. And this is a tradition that we've created the last few years. This is our 3rd time in the last 4 years where we had more national champion agri-science fair projects than any other chapter across the country. And so we were very excited about that. Something that was new for us, though, is our students were selected as a Models of Excellence program. And so through the National Chapter Award, this recognizes the top 10 FFA chapters out of the 9,100 FFA chapters nationwide. And our students went up there and interviewed, and we were actually named the National Models of Excellence winner. So out of 9,100-ish FFA chapters in the country, we were named the top FFA chapter nationwide.
Did any of this surprise you when you got on the bus in Stillwater, that you would come home with this much notoriety?
I think we had a lot of belief in our students because our students work so hard and they're so incredibly talented. But when you compete on that level, I don't think you come in with entitlement. I don't think you come in with expectations. And so we were blown away. We were shocked. We were very humbled from what came of that.
Any surprises from the national convention, things that you just really didn't see coming that were obviously good surprises?
I don't believe so. In addition to those awards, we were also named the premier chapter in the nation for building communities. So basically, we were named the top FFA chapter for giving back and serving communities and coming up with innovative ways to do this. Now, we have competed in the Models of Excellence and Premier Chapter on numerous occasions and have never won. And so for both of these, we've been on this stage before. We've heard other chapters' name called. And so there's that sense of dread because we've heard other people win in the past. And so I think there's lots of excitement, flowing, and so maybe a little bit of surprise because we've never been there before. But these students worked so hard, and so for that, it wasn't a surprise.
As a parent, I'm curious what that bus ride home was like.
There was a lot of celebration, especially back to the hotel after those nightly sessions. Those students would plug in the aux cord, they'd play music, they'd be singing, and I mean, you could just feel this excitement because there's stress and nerves that are going into the competition. Those students are kind of scared to find out the results. That's all over, but we also have the excitement that we just won. And so those students got a little bit rowdy, and it was well-deserved.
Awesome. Community service, you mentioned several times. It seems to be a common theme in your classroom and in your student events as well. I've heard very little, but just enough to be curious about your $5 challenge.
Yeah, so the FFA motto ends with living to serve. And so that's what our students should be working towards. And so each year our ninth graders take part in a program called the $5 Challenge. And it's really simple in its concept. Every single ninth grader in our chapter is given a $5 bill. They're given the whole fall semester, and they're challenged to make the biggest impact in their school and community. How that looks is up to them. The only big rule I have is you cannot spend more than the $5 given to us, because it's so easy to make excuses for why we can't serve. Well, I'm too poor, I'm too busy, I don't have the resources, I'm just not big enough myself. And so we want to show students that what they can do with minimal resources can change the world. And so those students work all semester. At the end, they come back. The last day of the semester is my favorite day of class because they pull up these PowerPoint presentations with them, doing these projects and highlighting what they've done. And I mean, it's inspiring. We had one student that took $5, created a GoFundMe account, and raised $1,000 to give to our school nutritional program for students who couldn't pay off their school lunch debts. And so things like that. Or maybe a student as simple as buying gloves and trash bags and going and cleaning up our local boomer lake. And so these students, whether it's a small act or something grand, they're finding that they are capable of making a difference in the community.
That is incredible. I'm thinking how I can pay off my Christmas debts through one of these systems. Probably not. All right, now we want to talk about your most recent award, and that is the Carl Perkins Community Service Award. I'm not familiar with the criteria for that. Could you tell me what you did, what was necessary to achieve that?
Yeah, so the Carl Perkins Award is through the ACTE, and it recognizes career technical educators who are implementing service learning in their CTs, CareerTech student organizations, as well as their classrooms. And so this has actually been a 2-year process. And so I filled out for this in 2022, was awarded this on the state level, had to compete on the regional level in 2023, and then at the end of 2023, named this on the national level. So several interviews. But this is a testament to what we do in class. As I mentioned when I won this award on stage, that this is more than anything a testament to the service that our students have done. And so they grasp a hold, they do these projects, they give back to their community, and quite frankly, the teacher looks really good as a result. And so I think I'm blessed to have amazing students that have embraced that service learning, and that's what's led to this award.
So did you go back to your hotel then and play music and get wild like your students did?
So funny thing, my wife and I have 3 kids, and this was our first time to get away from the kids and go to this conference. It was our first time to get away in 6 years. And so honestly, when we won, we just went back and sat, and we were like, silence, There's no children. And so that was our celebration. But it certainly meant a lot. It was very important.
Why do you think you're such a good instructor?
I think what we teach in agriculture education just sets us up for that. Our students choose to be there. They want to be there. We have a passion for what we do. We have a passion for, I always tell students, my number one passion is students, but my second passion is agriculture. I love teaching agriculture education because there's so many things that students can gain from that. But I think just having fun every day, some days are good and some aren't, but what we do is enjoyable. This last week in class, we were creating betta fish farms for students to learn about aquaculture. Those hands-on projects where students get to dive in. I think that's what you see in most agriculture education classrooms across the state.
I know you know this, but some people may not, that FFA is one of 7 co-curricular student organizations that CareerTech facilitates and coordinates. Last year, we had 29,000 FFA members in Oklahoma, I believe. What do students who go into a CTSO typically leave with? I mean, I know they're leaving with livestock skills or welding skills, but the soft skills and the bigger picture.
I think what many people don't realize about FFA in many of these organizations is we're not extracurricular, we're intercurricular. And so FFA is allowing students to enhance what they're learning in class and then take it into a leadership standpoint, whether we're presenting our research in the Agri-Science Fair, or we're giving a speech, or we're competing for scholarships. There's so many opportunities for students to take this skill that's very important, but now we're going to add a leadership element to it because regardless of what career they go into, they need to be leaders. They need to step up.
I've been working with and around students in these organizations for quite a few years. If I were to see a group of, say, 100 students, I could probably tell you which organization the students were from, but I want to hear it from you. If you had 100 students out there, how would you know, just observing them, which ones were most likely to be FFA members?
I know I would speak from our chapter. Sometimes when we talk to students, we mention the FFA way, or we talk about our program, the Stillwater FFA way. Is that behavior, representative of FFA? And what I would like to see with students is we're instilling this service learning, we're instilling this leadership. And so when we go places, we took students to a judging contest a few months back, and we had a staff member come to us and say, of all the student groups that came in, we were the only ones that picked up after ourselves and cleaned up. And I think that we hope that we're holding ourselves to a higher standard. So I would like to think that you're going to see students that are more respectful, that are more courteous, that are conscious of the people around them. And I hope, above all, that's more important than any agricultural skill we're teaching. I hope that that's what you see when we pick out these FFA members.
We talked before we started rolling here about some of the adults who have been through FFA programs, and I know that there are a lot of, say, legislators who have FFA backgrounds. Why do you suppose that is?
Well, I think it's that leadership skills. It's also a connection. And so you build this network of FFA members from across the state. Our students laugh because they'll mention some small town in Oklahoma, and I'll say, yeah, there's the ag teacher there. I know who that is. And so a lot of these students develop that same network. They'll say, I know the chapter president of that area. And so I think you build these connections. And so when you go from a people-led organization to now public service, you feel like you know everybody and you've developed those relationships, and that goes right into legislation or any other type of leadership role.
So you have had an opportunity to see some of your students become employed in careers, etc. Do you ever hear back from them? Do you have relationships with students after they've gone through?
Absolutely. So one of our favorite things, and we used to always tell our seniors, like, you better come back and see us. And they'd laugh, but many of them do. And so, seeing our students go on and succeed, sometimes it's in agriculture. I'll watch students graduate from our program and take a welding job and instantly make more than I'm making as a teacher right now. And that's pride for me, seeing those students move on while I would like their salary. But there's that pride. I think students going on to that, but I even think about students outside of the agriculture education. This past month in December, we had a student sign his scholarship offer for Oklahoma State University to go play football. And on senior night, he mentioned, his favorite teacher in school, the most impactful teacher in school, was Miss Bailey Cleaver, who was one of my teaching partners at Stillwater. And so to see the impact, even students who don't go on for a career in agriculture, those skills that we teach them. We have students, we have a student who is a singer, a country music singer. And so goes around and does that. Personally, I have pride of, I have 2 students, Austin and Riley at OSU, that are going to become my first students to go on and be ag teachers. And so for me, that may not make headlines, but for me, that I think about them as little 8th graders coming into agriculture education, not really knowing what FFA has to offer. And now they're going to do the same thing for other 8th and 9th graders. And so to me, those are the stories that make me really proud.
Now, who is your ag teacher?
So I had several ag teachers, but the one I had throughout my entire time in FFA was Mr. Brian Craig. And I definitely attribute why I'm an ag teacher to him, because he was someone that invested in me, didn't look at me as just a student or maybe even someone who were coaching to win something, but he looked at me as someone who needed help and needed growing, and someone that even though he's retired from teaching ag, he's someone that I still call quite often for advice.
That's amazing. I mean, it's a legacy that just keeps going through the generations.
Absolutely.
Before you got here, you were probably running through your head a list of things that we might be talking about, and I'm sure that for me, it seemed a little rushed. We may not have covered all the things you or I wanted to cover. Can you think of anything off the top of your head that maybe you would like to continue discussing?
Yeah, I think when you think about why is FFA as a whole so successful, or you look at our program, why is Stillwater FFA successful, or why are we successful as teachers, I think we have to understand what all goes into these students' education and what makes them successful. You know, for us here at Stillwater FFA, we have 250 amazing students. We have 3 ag teachers, myself and 2 others, that work hard, but then we look at the community, and it takes that community to make these programs successful. You know, whether that's providing funding. We have a scholarship program where every senior who gets their state FFA degree gets a college scholarship. You know, that was Stillwater residents coming together, raising that money. And many of those Stillwater residents come in and they serve as judges for our contest or co-coaches for me or competing on the national level. And I think for these programs to really, since we talk about community service, it's giving back to a community that's invested in us. This isn't just a one-way type service. And so I think any program that's looking to be successful, that's really important to recognize that it's not just what happens at the ag building or on FFA trips, but it's that community that invests in us.
That reminds me of something else that we didn't talk about, and that is the staff that we have here at the State Department of CareerTech for agricultural education. So what is your relationship as an educator with the staff here at the State Department?
Well, they provide the support that we need to be educators. What a lot of people don't realize is we wear so many different hats as a CareerTech educator. And they oftentimes help keep us in line and help us remind us what needs to get done. On our national convention trip, I receive an email from Rose Bonjour, who's our Central Area Program Specialist. Hey, this report is due today. Oh, no. Didn't think about that. We were thinking about competitions. And so, but that report was important and it needed to be done. And so I think it's important to have them because they support us and they help us be successful. And while they don't get to work quite often with the students, they play a role in the students' success by putting us in the best position to serve our kids.
What do you hope that your students in 11 years will be saying about their advisor and instructor?
I hope that they say that I'm someone that looked for their best interest, that helped them succeed in the path that they're on, whether that's in agriculture or simply just being an educated consumer of agriculture products, as we all are, who is successful outside of agriculture. I hope students think that I saw them as a person and helped them develop those skills to be successful, regardless of where they went.
What is something that students can learn in your programs that people who aren't involved in FFA might be surprised by?
I think they'd be surprised by the financial literacy and the record keeping and accounting that goes into this. And so, you know, every single student in the state of Oklahoma has to have a supervised agriculture experience or an SAE, and they have to keep records on that. And I mean, this could be something as simple as a livestock show program, or I have a student here in Stillwater, I guess former student now, who has a business with 20 lawns that he manages. And so now he's grown this into an actual business that's supporting him. And we're teaching students how to keep records. And I think that's a universal skill because we all have to manage our bank accounts. We all have to manage our finances. We can't go in the red. And so I think that's a skill that I think is probably overlooked because it's not just an agricultural skill. It's a financial life skill.
Interesting, and something that I certainly could have used help with back in the day. I've had a lot of time to learn it, but at first it wasn't easy. Anything else that you would like to discuss, mention? Anyone else you'd like to call out? Anything at all?
The only thing I would mention, and I mentioned their names already in this interview, but Tanner Nipper and Bailey Cleaver, those are my 2 teaching partners at Stillwater FFA. And so I teach the 8th and 9th grade, as you mentioned. They teach the 10th through 12th graders. And man, those 2 are incredible. I think what's amazing about our program is we get to divvy up certain specialties. I think about Bailey Cleaver. She has the livestock experience that I do not have. And when students need that guidance to succeed, they need that. Mr. Tanner Nipper provides a level of patience that I will never possess in the way that he connects with students and teaching them ag mechanic skills that I am not savvy enough sometimes to teach. And so I think that partnership is a blessing in our program. And, I used to teach at a 1-teacher program at Wilton, and it was incredible. But coming to a multi-teacher program and getting to rely on each other, and each of us bring different strengths together to serve students, I think that's a huge blessing. And we would not be successful as a program, and I would not have received this award without them. And so they receive all that credit from me.
So apparently humility is something that you teach in your program as well. You do a really good job at it. Congratulations on all of your awards, and I appreciate you being here with us today. And any future plans other than teaching?
Not right now. I am getting my doctorate at Oklahoma State University in agriculture education. If all goes well, I'll defend this summer. And while I told my students they're not calling me Dr. Branscum, I would officially be Dr. Branscum. But I love what I do every day. I'm having so much fun teaching. I have an incredible group of junior high students this year. And I'm just looking forward to continuing to see where they go.
And it sounds like they're very lucky to have a role model as strong as they have. So good job.
Thank you.
For more information about CareerTech student organizations such as FFA, visit the Oklahoma CareerTech website at oklahoma.gov/CareerTech. And don't forget to follow Oklahoma CareerTech on social media. You can find us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you'll join us again for CareerTech Conversations. I'm Connie Romans.